When Ryan Day speaks, we listen. Let's go. So the podcast run by Austin Ward, Jeremy Birmingham, and Bill Landis appears on there as well. Did an interview over at Roosters with Ryan Day on Tuesday, and it was a really interesting interview. They had a lot of good questions, and it was kind of fun. They were kind of joking around with Ryan Day, so you got to see a little bit of Ryan's character. It's probably about 20, maybe 30-minute interview. I'm going to link that below in the description, so go check that out. But they got onto the topic of the transfer portal, and Austin Ward and Jeremy Birmingham both asked Ryan Day a couple of times about how he feels about fans and even other coaches like Lane Kiffin talking about how Ohio State is spending all of this money in the transfer portal. And typical Ryan Day, he just kind of brushed it off and was like, yeah, that's stupid. Why would you think that? We brought 6 players in. Look at Michigan. They're bringing double that. Look at Ole Miss. They're bringing all these teams are being hypocrites. He never actually called them hypocrites. That's me adding it in. But essentially what he's saying is like, that doesn't make any sense. And so as they started to talk about it more and more, Ryan Day just flat out finally said, like, listen, these guys wanted to come to Ohio State. Like, yes, money and NIL was a factor of it, but they went after guys that they knew would want to come to Ohio State. So I have about 30 to 60-second segments of this interview that I want to play for you guys about when he talks about each individual player, and then I want to talk about it for each one. So our first one is Caleb Downs. Why did Caleb Downs come to Ohio State?
And these guys wanted to come to Ohio State. This wasn't one of those things where, like, we had to sell really hard. These guys were excited to be here. They wanted to be a part of it. You look at a guy like Caleb Downs, like, it was us and Bam at the end. And Coach Saban did an unbelievable job recruiting him at the end. And I give him a lot of credit. Like, Coach Saban was one of the best coaches in the history of college football. And for a safety to go play for him, that was a hard conversation, but I understood. Mm-hmm. And then, when Coach Saban decided to retire, he was like, I want to go to Ohio State. And it wasn't that easy, but but that's what happened.
I know there was another battle going on a second time. Yeah, but that's the way it goes.
Ryan Day makes it sound a whole lot easier than how every fan felt in that situation. But no, Ryan Day, he goes back to the recruitment. And he says, look, down at the recruitment, it was Ohio State, Alabama, just as we thought. And at the end of the day, Nick Saban wins out because guess what? He's Nick Saban. He's one of the greatest college football coaches to ever coach. And Ryan Day accepts that and he moves on. And this is just one more way that Ryan Day is improving as a coach, where he's able to say, yeah, we missed out on this guy, but I'm not going to burn the bridge. I'm not going to badmouth him. I'm not going to have a bad relationship with him. So if he does come back in to the portal and he does consider Ohio State, he has good thoughts. He has good feelings about everything that went on there. And so even Georgia, who went and hired his coach from when he was at Alabama, even Georgia, who is trying to do everything they possibly can to try and get Caleb Downs over there, Caleb Downs still chooses Ohio State because he knew that this was a good place for him. He knew that this is some place he wanted to be. There's all kinds of stories and rumors out there about, Caleb Downs was in the middle of moving in and he decided not to move in and not to sign the papers and to go to Ohio State instead. I think Berm said something like that at one point. Maybe it was him. If not, I apologize. But somebody was saying stuff like that at one point. And at the end of the day, Caleb Downs just chose Ohio State because he wanted to be at Ohio State. Plain and simple, no other reason. They didn't offer him a huge bag. They didn't offer him, this deal that nobody else could match, this unmatchable deal or anything like that. He wanted to come to Ohio State, and yes, I'm sure there was some money involved, but this wasn't a guy where they paid, $5 million to Shedeur Sanders money and said, you have to come here because we're desperate for any good player. No, players still want to come to Ohio State. Another person that he talked about was Quinshon Judkins. Let's hear what he says on that.
Even with Quinshon, he knew IGB, and so when he decided to go in the portal, there was conversation there, with Davison talked to him about the type of program that we have and what we do and care about our players and how we push each other. He sold it more than we did. And the fact that he wanted to come in and play with Trey, that just spoke volumes about who he is and obviously who Trey is. So
IGB being Davison Igbinosun, who transferred to Ohio State after his freshman year at Ole Miss playing there. Listen, this is one of the strongest examples of culture that you're going to find is when you literally have former player or former teammates recruiting other teammates to come play for them. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you want. If you run an organization, you want your employees saying to other people, like other good employees, their friends, if somebody's going to be good for a job, for them to say, hey, buddy, come work with me because this is a great place, great culture. Everything here is awesome. You would love it here. And then at the end of the day, like, I don't think we recognize Travion Henderson enough for how humble and selfless this guy is, that he is willing to say, yeah, coach, bring him in. He makes the team better. I don't care if he's the best running back in the nation or arguably the best running back in the nation. Bring him in because if he's going to help us win, that's what we need. Now, of course, there's also some thoughts there about the NFL and if you have less carries, and Quinshon Judkins has been carrying the ball like crazy. So obviously that's going to probably hurt his NFL prospects with how much he's been carrying the ball. But I think at the end of the day, like, this just goes to show how strong Ohio State's culture is and how strong the brotherhood is that not only are these guys wanting to be together, but when they have friends from previous schools or previous interactions, they're also saying, hey, you want to come here, man, come join what's going on over here because it's far better than what you've been at before. Not to degrade Ole Miss or anything like that. I just think that the culture speaks for itself when you got guys recruiting other guys and doing that. So very cool there. Another one that we heard Ryan Day talk about is Will Howard. Let's listen to what he says about Will Howard.
Even Will, Will, I think he would tell you, I don't know if he said this publicly or not. I mean, he had to make a decision whether he wanted to declare to go to the NFL, come back, or, go to a school. I think he might have had it down to Ohio State or go to the NFL.
That's what
he wanted. Yeah, okay, yeah. So he wanted to come to Ohio State for a reason. And so when you look at these individual stories, this is not like we're just going to try to go buy the best players in America. It's not the case at all. But people are still going to say certain things, and that's fine. That's just the way it's always going to be here, and we have no problem with that.
Wow, Will Howard came to Ohio State. He was also considering the NFL. I thought Avery Johnson beat him out for the job, and I thought that Avery Johnson's way better and Will Howard stinks. No, we did not think that. We knew that's not the case, all right? Yes, there was going to be probably some kind of competition or something like that. Guess who else transferred because there's probably going to be some kind of competition going on? Dillon Gabriel, who's being regarded as one of the top quarterbacks in the nation. No, the truth is that Will Howard had the two options here. He had the option of going to Ohio State or the NFL draft. If you've listened to Will Howard talk, he's actually talked about how when he went into the portal, he thought, well, I'm probably going to be going to the NFL. I might as well enter into the portal, see what my prospects are. And then when he found that Ohio State was interested, he was like, this is a great place to go. Ryan Day is here. They've put out first round pick after first round pick. Yeah, there's going to be a competition, but I think I can win this job. They need a veteran guy who started games. And so, yeah, it all makes sense. Will Howard had the option to either go to Ohio State or go to the draft. And at the end of the day, like, he could have gone to the draft. He actually could have. He was on an interview when he first got to Ohio State where he was talking to Berm, Austin Ward, and I think Bill Landis was there as well. And I mean, straight up, Berm just asked him, he was like, what was your draft grade? And he told him, he was like, I was projected to be a third to fifth round pick. And so it's like, this guy, instead of going to be a third or fifth round pick in the NFL draft, chose to go to Ohio State because he wanted to improve. He wanted to get better so he could get into that first round, that second round pick range and secure himself as being a high draft pick. So that way he's not looked at as like this secondary option, but actually looked at as somebody who has a little bit more recognition and might be able to come in and play his NFL freshman or his NFL rookie year. So again, like, when you have a player who's considering the draft in Ohio State, like, that's pretty prestigious. That's pretty excellent culture. And that just speaks to the coaching that you have on staff, that they're willing to say, yeah, I'm going to go away from the draft for 1 year so that way I can get better coaching and figure out more about what I can do to grow my draft stock and see what I can do there. All right, our final one. This is the longest one. This is almost a minute long. Ryan Day talks about Julian Sayin.
When you do this and you bring guys into the roster, you don't just bring guys into that locker room. There's a lot of pride in that locker room, and a big part of it is what happens in the strength and conditioning area with Coach Mick and what they do in there and the work that they put in. You don't just walk in and think you're going to get on the field. And so, we spent a lot of time recruiting Aaron Nolan, And so when Julian became available, how can I look people in the eye and just say I'm flippantly just going to go grab Julian Sayin because he's available? And that didn't just happen like that either. There was a lot of conversation there. So you got to be really thorough about these things and understand how it's going to affect your culture and your team, because it sounds great, but then you got that room and you got a bunch of guys looking at you, and so there was a lot of conversation, hard conversation, honest conversation, but ultimately you got to do what's best for the program. And this job certainly isn't for the faint of heart. Sometimes you got to make these hard decisions, and I understand that, and I think our players at least respect the fact that, one, I try to communicate it the best I can, but at the same time, I'm going to do what's best for the program.
And players, I think, understand and respect what Ryan Day is saying here, is that he has to do what's best for the program. And I totally get what he's talking about with working out and earning your spot and doing all that stuff. And I think that, he didn't go huge into this here, but I think that this was probably the most difficult conversation with Aaron Olin, right? I mean, Aaron Olin, guy that's a 5-star recruit, you're bringing him in. You wanted Julian Sayin, but when Julian Sayin didn't want you, you kind of move on to Aaron Olin. And I'm sure that they didn't go to him and be like, yeah, we moved on to you because we wanted Julian Sayin instead. But you do think about, how many guys are you going to put in a recruiting class together that are 2 5-star quarterbacks? I mean, we had the option of doing it this year with Ryan Montgomery and Tavian St. Clair. I think Montgomery's a 5-star, or at least he's close. He's a highly rated quarterback. It just doesn't happen very often because only one guy plays quarterback. But at the end of the day, these guys wanted to go to Ohio State. They wanted to get coached up by one of the best QB developers in the nation, if not the best QB developer in the nation, in Ryan Day, and they wanted to go there and see what they could do. They wanted to compete, and that's something that Ryan Day talked about a lot in this interview as well, is his recruiting pitch and how he really talks to guys the most once they get on campus. And his recruiting pitch to them is not, hey, flowers and rainbows, everything's great here, and unicorns and everything's awesome. No, if you're going to come to Ohio State, you're going to compete. You're going to earn your spot, and you're going to earn everything that you have here, because guess what? We don't just recruit 1 5-star every single class. We don't just recruit, 3 4-stars and hope that you turn into something great. We recruit the best of the best, and if you're going to come here, you're going to have to beat those guys out. And I think that ended up being a big factor here, right? Because when he goes to Aaron Olin and he says, hey, we're going to bring this guy in, he didn't tell Aaron Olin, hey, we're never going to bring anybody in that's ever going to be better than you. You're the 5-star. Next recruiting class, we're going to bring in a 3-star or something like that. No, this is Ohio State. You're going to get the best of the best. And at the end of the day, I love to hear what Ryan Day had to say, that he's going to do what's best for the program. He is absolutely going to make the decisions that's best for the program. Obviously, he wants to think about his players. Obviously, he wants to have hard conversations with them. But at the end of the day, Ryan Day has respect for his players, but he's going to do what's best for the program. I love this interview so much. This was spectacular by Austin Ward and Berm. Bill Landis wasn't there, but Bobby Carpenter was. I love Bobby Carpenter. Bobby Carpenter is fantastic for Ohio State. Everything that he does. If you don't listen to him on the radio, go listen to him there. If you don't listen to the Bobby Carpenter podcast, go listen to it there. You'll find the link for the entire interview in the description below, so go check that out, give them a watch, give them a listen, because this was huge for them and a really cool experience. So thank you everybody for watching this. Appreciate it. Have a good one.